mentioned this, the merger that you went through. So what advice would you have about, organizations, and this has been a buzz thing, right? For, I don't know, as long as I've ever been in the nonprofit space, over 15 years now, seek partnerships, seek mergers, work collaboratively, and more funders continue to press the issue of mergers. And so I know there's many organizations out there, as the board that we both worked under, Karen, had suggested, let's identify some merger opportunities or where we can better collaborate, partner, and strengthen the services we're offering in the community. So there's a lot of organizations probably out there thinking about this. So what advice would you have about, any other advice or takeaways that you would maybe suggest for for people considering these sorts of things and who to look for or what not to look for?
Sure. So before you're looking for something, what was really nice about our organization before we merged, we weren't in a position that we had to merge. So we weren't looking for a partner to bail us out. We were a strong player. We felt like we could take some of the services we have and bring them to scale. We also had enough financial resources that our board said, if the organization is going to, or if the community, excuse me, is going to lose a service because another organization is going to go out of business or something like that, we should see if that matches, because we have public dollars that people have donated to us to execute these kinds of services. So that was in our head in the background. And then we really had a session with our board to say, what would the deal breakers be? What scenarios, if I, as the leader, am going to go out and look for opportunities, what are the scenarios that would or wouldn't be acceptable to you as a board to bring it back? And what we found was not exactly, but pretty close to what we were looking for. But it was easier for me to then know what our board wanted and what we had to do, because by the time you look on one of the job boards and you see that they're looking for an executive director for an agency, that decision's already been made. And so knowing what's out there is really important. So that was a really important part leading up to the merger. And then I would say going into a merger, it's very important that you're really clear with the language that you're using. So our particular organizations came together and it was to be a merger of equals, which meant that we weren't adopting all of the policies of something and saying, welcome, here's the t-shirt. We really were going to do this from scratch. It's really tough to do, but is the only way that we were going to actually be able to do this merger, because both organizations were strong. Both boards saw themselves as strong. A lot of people use the word merger, and it's really an acquisition. And so I think that's really important language too. If there's a smaller organization and that you are going to be acquiring them, that at least at the legal level, you use the right language. You want the staff to feel good. You want folks to feel good about that. But the reality is that's going to make a difference as to how you approach things. And it's not the first thing you would think about, but it is definitely something that's critical. And then there's all sorts of things. I will put a plug in for finances for sure. But even the simplest decision about, do you have the same fiscal year? When are your contracts working? How many audits do you have to come till you get to a first basic piece? And I use that as a nice example because in our first year, we ended up having 5 different audits. We didn't have the same fiscal year and we didn't merge on either of those fiscal years. So those of you that know finance know what we just said. But it really, the bigger part is, don't assume you can do it yourself. You don't have to have a ridiculously expensive consultant to take you all through it, but you need to ask questions of professionals in those areas up front, because it will make things a lot easier on the tail end.
There's so many of those little unintended consequences of merger that you just would never even realize. And I think that's an important distinction, right? When you're thinking about mergers and acquisitions as a nonprofit, you had mentioned that you really felt 2 equals, really even equal in size, right? Or, not far off from each other in size and staffing and programming and history, both were very well-established organizations. And so anybody looking to either be acquired or a small struggling agency looking to be acquired, really differentiating the difference between the two, right?
Right.
I think that is a pretty big distinction there.